I had an affair with my boss. I wanted to get promoted, but now I'm doing it almost every day. My husband found out. I know what I'm about to tell you might sound disgusting, but trust me, I'm not proud of what I did either. I hate to admit that I slept with my boss to get promoted, but I ended up going back to him until karma caught up with me. I never thought I would be the type of person to cheat on my husband. I always held myself to high standards. I had always been a person of high moral standards and had vowed never to betray my partner. However, one night everything changed. My husband didn't take it lightly when he found out about my affair, especially when he found out that my affair partner was my boss. My name is Winnie. I am 35 years old. My husband's name is Jordan. He is 37 years old. I worked at an editorial company, but unfortunately I'm no longer working there. I was dismissed from the office the day my affair with my boss was made known to the. I'd like to share a story about a challenging experience I had in public. It was one of the worst days of my life, and I feel ashamed about it. Jordan and I have been together for 7 years. We met at an auction organized by his father. I was able to attend the auction because Jordan's brother Luke had invited me. Luke was my college classmate. We weren't close, but we were mutual friends. He invited me to the event where Jordan and I met at the auction. We got close and eventually got married a few months later. Jordan is a nice guy. He was the type that likes trying out new things and was very smart. After our wedding, Jordan and I relocated and started a new life somewhere far away from our hometown. It was there that I got employed as an intern at the company I worked for. Jordan was a businessman, but despite that, our relationship was. Jordan was always there for me, making sure I never lacked anything. After 3 years of relocation, he even moved to another city for work. My husband only comes back every Friday and spends the weekend with me before going back. It was tough at first, but we got used to it. We often talk on the phone and video chat. My husband and I spend hours talking about our days. We had a quick catch-up about random stuff, which was pretty interesting. I always looked forward to midnight so we could talk. By the 3rd year of our marriage, I wasn't an intern anymore. I'd been promoted to one of the marketing teams, which I was happy about. I devoted my time to my work and was always punctual. I did whatever I was told, which gave me a good record. That's why I was the first to be promoted among other interns who'd resumed with me. I was really motivated to work hard after I was promoted. I wanted to be on a high-ranking marketing team, not just be one of the interns. I wasn't happy with my previous position because it was more challenging and time-consuming at times. Some of my colleagues had to work late nights, and despite my promotion, some high-ranking colleagues made me work more than my stipulated time. They even sent me on errands that were meant for an intern, which was really frustrating. I really wanted to get promoted to the next level, but I couldn't tell anyone about it. Not even my boss, because I might get into trouble or could even get fired instantly. My boss was really strict and didn't like anyone being late or lazy. I kept up with some of the people that bullied me and didn't say anything as time went on. I discovered that my boss was notorious for only promoting those who he had a personal relationship with. I found out this through one of my colleagues. Pia was one of the oldest and highest-ranking workers in the company. She wasn't like the others who were mean. She was calm and friendly, and often helped me with my work whenever she was in the office. As a result, I opened up to her about some of the challenges I faced at work, and also told her about my desperation to get promoted. The level I was at was getting a toll on me, and I badly wanted a promotion. She watched me rant, and then burst into laughter after I was done talking. I was annoyed. I was confused by her reaction. Why was she laughing at a serious issue? Pia apologized and then told me a secret about our boss. Apparently he slept with some of the female staff just to get them promoted. I was shocked at first, but I guess it wasn't that surprising. My boss did look like the playboy type. He knows how to look strict when he's in the office. To sum up, the mean ones among the CO workers. It was the workers who got their hands dirty for the promotion. I didn't judge them because I also wanted to get promoted. I was desperate to climb the corporate ladder, so I decided to take a risk and sleep with him after my conversation with Pia that day. I made up my mind to also give it a try, but I didn't inform her about it. Pia was a lady that never got. If I'd told her straight away, she'd have said no. I didn't want that to happen, so I waited a few months, and then had the courage to do it. It was a tough decision, but I had to. I told myself that it wouldn't hurt, and at least no one would know about it. My husband didn't know about my hunt for a new promotion. If he had known, he would have asked why I was in such a rush. I had only been working at the company for 4 years at that point and was aiming for a promotion. That's when I learned that hard work and patience really do pay off. Pia told me how hard she worked and how long she waited before she got promoted. I was inspired by Pia's story and realized that hard work and patience really do pay off. However, I wasn't ready for that because I wanted to teach those that bullied me and some of the interns a lesson. So, I decided to get my hands dirty too. The day I made up my mind to sleep with my boss, I had mixed feelings. I kept thinking about what would happen after it, and kept asking myself if he would. I wasn't sure if he'd get me promoted or just want to have fun with me. After thinking it over, I decided to go for it. When I told my boss about my decision, he had this weird smirk on his face. I knew he'd been doing this with other female staff long before I started working there. We booked a hotel that day and I went there secretly after work. It was one night of passion, and I got the promotion I'd been dreaming of. I wasn't as excited as I thought I'd be though. I had to deal with the guilt of cheating on my husband for weeks. Even when Jordan came visiting at the weekends, I wasn't that excited. I felt sorry for him. I felt ashamed of myself. My husband's reaction when I told him about my promotion was priceless. He was genuinely happy for me and even took me out so we could celebrate my new promotion. When I told Jordan about my new promotion, he was surprised. He thought I got it through hard work. My husband knew how hardworking I was, and so he never questioned it. If only he'd known at the time how much I paid for it. My husband is the type of guy who likes to celebrate achievements, no matter how small. I made a mistake letting him slip away because of my own selfish interest. I was so focused on my own selfish interest that I hurt my husband in the process. I told myself it was just a one-off. I saw it as a means to an end, but I didn't have any intention of going back to my boss for a promotion after the last meeting. Unfortunately though, I found myself drawn to my boss more and more as the days went by. Before I knew it, I was sleeping with him almost every day. I tried to justify my actions by telling myself that I was just maintaining my position and ensuring job security, but deep down I knew I was lying to myself. Everyone at the office was surprised at how quickly I got promoted, considering I was just a newbie working. In that office, 5 years is a long time. Some of the interns kept throwing subs at me, and I could tell they were jealous of my new rank. Not everyone knew about my boss's dirty secret. Those that knew could attest to the fact that I had slept with the boss for the position. I kept cool and said no word to anyone, not even Pia. She also knew something was wrong, and on many occasions she confronted me about doing something. Despite the confrontation, I still didn't open up to her. I kept giving her excuses and denying it. As time went on, I stopped feeling guilty. I stopped thinking about it too much and moved on. Days, weeks, and months went by, and I kept my affair with my boss going. At some point, my boss and I were absent from work. I skipped work and often came up with excuses to justify my absence. No one suspected me. My relationship with my boss was more than just work. Our affair became a regular thing, and he often spent the night at my house. Sometimes I slept over at his house. My boss was married, but his wife was a businesswoman. My boss's wife was a businesswoman, so it was easy for us to hang out at his place. Things came to a head when my husband, who had been working overseas, surprised me with a visit. He had been suspicious of my late nights at work and constant changes in behavior. Apparently, I always missed Jordan's calls and didn't return them on time. When I did, I often gave an excuse that I was busy at work. I lied to him about working late hours. He suspected that something was going on. He decided to come home. From how I sounded on the phone, he thought maybe I missed him, so he decided to pay me a visit. It was on a Thursday afternoon, on that fateful day. Jordan didn't tell me he was coming. He wanted to surprise me, but he ended up getting surprised. He walked in on me and my boss in a compromising position. My boss and I were too busy to have even noticed my husband's presence. Jordan stood for a few seconds before we saw him. He looked like he'd been betrayed and hurt. I couldn't even look at him twice in the face. I was so ashamed that I covered myself with the bedsheet. I'd never seen him so broken. It was all because of my foolish actions. He stormed out of the room. I knew I had to face the consequences of my actions immediately. I got dressed and ran after him. Before I left, I ordered my boss to leave my house at once. My husband wouldn't have been so understanding if he'd found out the second time. I couldn't find Jordan. I went outside to look for him. By the time I got outside, I saw him driving out of the compound. I suddenly realized what I'd done and knew I'd hurt my husband. I burst into tears and fell on my knees crying bitterly. I was so mad at myself. Everything became sour and I kept blaming myself. After a few minutes of wallowing in self-pity, I got hold of myself. I should have kept my cool and gone inside to meet my boss. I was so angry that I wanted to slap him. But I didn't, because he didn't force me into having an affair with him. I took the initiative to meet him because I wanted to. My boss wasn't remorseful about what happened. I expected not to be, so I didn't make a scene. I asked him to leave. I was left alone at that moment with my conscience. I saw the look on Jordan's face, and it pierced me so much that I wept. I couldn't even call him. Even if I did, he wouldn't have picked up. I knew he was furious that day. I stayed all night waiting for my husband, but he didn't return home. I got so scared. I kept having negative thoughts. I thought something must have happened to him in between the night I called him and he didn't pick up. I tried his number, but it just kept on ringing with no response. At some point, when it rang, Jordan would cut the call and wouldn't pick up. 2 days later, my husband returned home but refused to speak to me. He wouldn't even look at me. I begged for forgiveness, but he was too hurt to even consider it. My husband ignored me and didn't listen to anything I had to say. His silence made me more angry at myself. At the time, I thought of how Jordan reacted when he caught me cheating on him. A normal man who caught his partner cheating would react immediately, or by sending her out of the house. But Jordan was different. I thought maybe he would eventually forgive me since he sent me out. I was wrong. My husband didn't send me out immediately because he was thinking about the perfect revenge. If I'd known what he was planning, I wouldn't have stayed a minute in that house. Jordan's revenge was inhumane and I'll have to deal with it from now on to get back at me. My husband came up with a plan for revenge. He contacted my husband told my boss's wife about our affair. I still don't know how he found out. My husband didn't even know the company I worked for until after the incident. He only knew that I worked at a particular editing company. When my boss's wife found out, she didn't spare either of us. The scandal made the news, and my boss I was forced to resign. My boss worked for his wife. It turned out that my boss's wife was the owner of the company we all worked for. She was from a wealthy family and inherited the company from her parents. My boss was promoted to manager and was meant to work like we, the employees, did. Everyone found out about this after the scandal. I was immediately dismissed from the office and left without a job for months. I lost my job and my marriage was on the rocks. The news spread like wildfire and before I knew it, my face was all over the company's wall. My husband was the one who got me into that mess. I felt so ashamed I couldn't go out or near the company. But the worst part was the guilt. I had betrayed my husband's trust and destroyed our marriage. It was a price I just couldn't afford for a promotion. I was so stupid that I didn't think about the outcome of my decision. Jordan was right to be angry. My husband said his revenge was too soft and that we were lucky because if he had had his way, he would have captured the whole thing and published it. I was really depressed and felt like I couldn't go on. All I could think about was how I'd be able to leave the house. Jordan, my husband, wouldn't speak to me or eat anything I cooked. Jordan and I lived in the same house for 2 days before he finally did his worst. He exposed my affair with my boss to his wife and the public. That was just the start of it. Guys, I didn't know that the time Jordan didn't send me out was because he had sold the house we lived in to someone else. He sold the house the day he exposed my infidelity with my boss. He didn't inform me about it. I only found out 2 days after he left the house. Before he left, my husband dropped a stack of divorce papers on the table. On a Monday morning, before I could even wake up, my husband had vanished. His side of the wardrobe was empty, and his cars were nowhere to be found. Even my car was missing. I didn't understand what was going on, so I decided to call him immediately. He picked up, but he was acting strange on the phone. My husband told me that I shouldn't bother looking for him because he was gone for good. Before I could even say anything, he ended the call. I was so angry that I didn't understand why my husband decided to punish me this way after publishing my scandal and ridiculing my life. Didn't he think that was enough revenge for him? Why did he have to take my car and other valuable items with him? He even signed the divorce papers and left them on the table for me before I could get to them. I managed to hold myself back. I heard a knock on the door, immediately went to see whether it was my husband. Maybe he was just pulling my legs. I opened the door, but to my greatest surprise it wasn't my husband. It was a man and a woman. They immediately saw me and got confused. I was obviously looking unkempt, and like someone who had a lot going on. Of course I did have a lot going on. After that, my face was all over the news, and the scandal was the talk of the town. The two strangers introduced themselves. I didn't need anyone to tell me that they were couples. Just looking at them, they really reminded me of Jordan and I back then. But then, guys, this couple were mean. It took them a few minutes before they quickly knew I was the lady who had an affair with her boss. The woman didn't hide her disgust. She kept throwing insults at me, but I kept my cool and ignored her. The guy standing next to her wasn't much better. In fact, he was worse than his partner, but at least his tone of voice was kind and respectful. I put up with everything because I deserved it. It was the price I had to pay for my actions. The couple told me about the transaction they had with Mr. Jordan, who just so happens to be my ex. I told them I wasn't aware of any transactions, and they laughed at me. They made a mockery of me, and said the house now belongs to them. They gave me 48 hours to leave. They also showed me a piece of paper with the agreement they had with my husband, Jordan. I was so shocked. I thought I was dreaming. I suddenly realized why Jordan didn't send me out. He wanted to punish me by making me stay in the house while he packed. He'd left me stranded, and I didn't know what to do. My credit cards were among the things he took from me. I was dumbfounded and didn't know what to do or say to the couple that stood in front of me. They saw how shocked I was, and knew that my husband sold the house without telling me. They told me to leave the property before they came back, and they didn't want to see me. They left with a look of mockery on their faces. I went inside and sat on the couch. I thought about what had happened, and started looking through my phone to see if I could get help from anyone. The few people I called didn't answer or return any of my calls or text messages. At that moment, I remembered Pia and called her. But she told me not to call her again, because she doesn't want to have anything to do with me, because that would be putting her job at risk. It seems like they've warned all the staff at work not to talk to me. I went to pack my stuff from my desk, and everyone was avoiding me and mocking me until I was walked out by the security men. Pia was my only hope, but she turned me down. I eventually moved out of the house after 48 hours and I spent the night in an abandoned building for months, trying to find a job. I'm still unemployed and I'm starting to regret sleeping with my boss. I wish I could go back and fix things with my husband, but I'm trying to move on and make amends. I'm haunted by the mistakes I made, and I'm unhappy that I let the love of my life slip through my hands.